Wisconsin. We beat the rain here. We just got a very brief rain shower that was quite good actually, quite refreshing. We unloaded the plane, we covered it, and this is where we'll spend the night. Pretty fun day, a very long trip for New Jersey, a very cool low approach into Oshkosh. Well, can't wait for what's next. The party's just beginning. Let's go. We have a mass arrival to do.
The following 48 hours were all about training and the final prep for the big day. For those who attended at least one mini clinic sometime in the previous 6 months, this was a refresher. For those who didn't, it was a last chance, mandatory step. This is also the first time in the year where all pilots in the group are together, and that we get to train with all planes at once. Routine is simple. We brief, we fly, we debrief, over and over, multiple times a day. Each flight allows pilots to practice turns, sidewalks, and all kinds of contingency procedures, so we're prepared for every possible scenario.
One going around there. Cherokee tail is downwind to BC, touchdown 35. Mike 1, did you signal sidewalk? Negative.
After Friday's flight, we had our final and official mass arrival brief.
PTO Jeopardy.
A Jeopardy-style quiz tested the group's knowledge on the rules, procedures, and mantras of Cherokees to Wash.
Before we go, number 2.
And set the right mood for the big day we'll all have next morning.
So today's the big day, the conclusion of a journey that started 2 months ago for me at the mini clinic in Bolton Field in Ohio. And today is the day that we fly as a mass arrival into Oshkosh. It will be my first time doing that, and our scheduled arrival is 10 a.m. Big day for us, everybody here is getting set up and everything. Super exciting day, it all culminates today, here, right now, and we are ready to go. Let's do this.
Our pre-departure briefing, including our route to Oshkosh, alternated airports along the way, and the assigned formation position for each pilot. We were split in elements of 2 or 3 planes, the lead element being Alpha and the last being Quebec, following the phonetical alphabet order. We all headed out to the planes for our 9 a.m. check-in time, when we all have to be ready to taxi.
LeBlanc, check in. Alpha 2, Alpha 3, Alpha 1, Bravo 2, Bravo 3, Delta 1, Charlie 2, Delta 1, Delta 2, Delta 3, Echo 1, Echo 2, Echo 3, Fox 1, Fox 2, Golf 1, Golf 2, 3, Hotel 1, Hotel 2, Hotel 3, India 1, India 2, Juliet 1, Juliet 2, Juliet 3, Kilo 1, Kilo 2, Kilo 3, Kilo 1, Lima 2, Mike 1, Mike 2, Mike 3, November 1, November 2, November 3, Oscar 1, Oscar 2, Oscar 1, Quebec 1, connected. Alright folks, let's have a great flight. Two-way attack, so go 132 Golf Tango, flight 44, ready to depart. Number 132 Golf Tango Tower, runway 02, come on out. 2803, quick takeoff. Takeoff, something to flight, you guys have been great, thanks for your help. Hey, no, thanks for coming in.
Each element starts their roll 30 seconds after the element in front. Once in the air, that ensures a 3/4 of a mile separation between elements, making our flight a 13-mile long line of planes. We all rolled a smooth and crisp morning air heading south, cruising at 95 knots and 1,000 feet above ground. Each wingman follows their lead, who then follows the element in front. And for about 45 minutes, we just enjoyed the ride.
Flight RT7, go away. Land 27, Cherokee flight. Cherokee flight, Cherokee lead, we are cleared to land 27, green dot. Bravo 3, gear down. Bravo 2, gear down. Delta 1, Delta 3, gear down. down. Delta 1, you're down lock.
Charlie 2, down and locked.
Cirrus demo over Warbird. Cirrus demo, rolled over Warbird. Over Warbird. And Cirrus demo, we're in the middle of a mass arrival, so expect a hold from you about another 5 minutes, so. Osh Tower, Cherokee Tail, 5 miles west at Seahead. Cherokee Tail, right?
500.
Cirrus demo, you can see northbound and report a 3 mile left base for
Traffic, 12 o'clock. Traffic, 6 o'clock.
Cirrus demo, 3 miles left base. Cirrus demo, head left, 2 mile left base, northeast open. The first Cirrus demo, I see direct the numbers, T7 clear lane. Cirrus demo, nicely done. Appreciate it. Have a great time.
One by one, we exit to the left on the grass and follow the volunteer marshal's directions to the North 40, where the group would camp for the week. All 44 planes landed in 8 minutes and 25 seconds, in what was a flawless arrival.
Osh Tower, Cherokee Tail, clear of the runway, all aircraft on deck. Cherokee Tail, thank you. Have a great week.
After shutdown, we gather for a final debrief that marks the conclusion of the Cherokees to Wash activities for the year. Mission accomplished.
Back to the go-go-round.
In addition to being amazing pilots, this is a fantastic group of people that care about each other, love to fly together, and ultimately wants to have fun.
I want to make sure I summarize this. Grumman Element was complaining about the Cherokees going too fast, so what else?
There we go. My name's Ed LeBlanc. I'm the Director of Operations for Cherokees to Osh, and as you can tell, I don't do promotional videos as much as I do. A little closer? Oh man, usually I talk too loud. All right, give that a try. Good morning, I'm Ed LeBlanc. I'm the Director of Flight Ops for Cherokees to Osh. As you can tell, I do more training stuff than marketing stuff like this, so sorry this isn't quite so smooth here. Anyway, for those who haven't been to AirVenture or Oshkosh in the first place, basically it's like a Disneyland for pilots. It's a week-long air show in Oshkosh that this past year had 680,000 plus attendees and 10,000 aircraft coming in and out of there, so it was amazing. You'll get more aerial demonstrations in one afternoon than most even big air shows will give you the whole weekend. The place is kind of broken up like Disneyland, like Tomorrowland, Fantasyland, whatever, where you've got warbirds and ultralights and vintage, and you'll see more warbirds and stuff there than pretty much any other place in the country or in the world for that matter right now. It's just an amazing place. They even have a separate float plane and amphibs area that's a nice break from the heat sometimes to get down and do something kind of cool there. Getting there, basically, I see kind of three big ways to get there. One is just to drive, the other one is to go commercial, and you can land at Appleton or Milwaukee or Madison. And then also going in general aviation, you got a couple of options. You could also go to Fond du Lac or Appleton or Madison there and then rent a car and go. Or you can fly directly into Oshkosh. Flying into Oshkosh is definitely an experience of a lifetime. And again, there's kind of a couple ways you could do that too. You could try to get there before the show starts. The NOTAM kicks in at noon on Thursday. And so kind of prior to that time, it's just like going into any other Class D airport. You can also fly in even in the middle of the show. You can come in IFR. There's kind of limited number of slots for that. You can do the Fisk arrival, or you can do a mass arrival with the group. That's what we're going to focus on today. The Fisk arrival, though, for those, how many people have done the Fisk arrival going in there? Anybody do it on the Sunday before the show? Yeah, it's kind of a hectic time on there. It's usually really, really busy. In fact, since COVID, they've actually broadened out how far back you have to go or how you get entered into it there. It's a really long time. If you have to go around, it's like 45 extra minutes to get back to where you came from on that. So you can have a lot of long holds and stuff in there. And although it's really safe, you just have to be aware that you're not talking to the other pilots. You're supposed to be calm out on there, and you're flying with a bunch of unknown pilots who are going to do unknown things. So it has its pros and cons there. You can see down in the lower left, there's kind of an ADS-B capture of what the FISC looks like. The FISC arrival people themselves, by the way, regardless if you get there, this is actually something pretty interesting to go see. You can actually go on just on my Apple map and say FISC VFR arrival, and it pops up and shows you right where it is. It's just this trailer almost in somebody's yard, and they're very welcoming and let you come out there and kind of watch it. It's really fascinating to see what they do. Very good professional group of people, way more relaxed than I thought it would be compared to what you're hearing in the air. But anyway, if you do that, that's something to check out. But we're here to talk about the mass arrivals, and I would say that from what I've heard from other people here too, once you've done it, you probably won't want to go any other way, including or maybe especially the FISC after doing this stuff. We all have different organizations that do it. I'm with Cherokees to Osh, but the Moonies and the Cessnas and the Bonanzas and the Cirruses all have their own group. We all have our fixed arrival times to come in. FAA's kind of learned some lessons on that. 2023, when that video was shot, there were 4 mass arrival groups on Saturday, one of the busiest days, and so that just choked up the FISC, and so they've kind of said, no, we got to make some changes. So now we have two groups on Friday, 2 on Saturday, and 1 on Sunday. And so our day was Friday this last year, and that may rotate a little bit on there. But each of us groups wrote musters at a different airport. We do ours at Central Wisconsin Airport in Wausau. The Moonies do theirs at Madison and similar down the road there. CTO is, I'd like you to think of this as a process, not an event, and you'll understand why as we go through on this stuff. Been running this with volunteers since 2010, and a shout out to the people who started this, Terry and Karen Hawking there, and Ray and Jill Lyles. They had the idea that on the 50th anniversary of the certification of the Cherokee back in 2010, they wanted to have a 50 on the 50th kind of thing. Luckily, that was also Oshkosh, because we really didn't know what we were doing at that time, and so we practiced, and then we couldn't go except by bus, and that, God loves Cherokee drivers, as one of my friends says, because that didn't happen that year, but it worked out okay. We've always been a pretty ecumenical group. Obviously, we have 28s, we've had 32s since the start. We've had Grumman's for the last, 8 years or so. Had a Comanche or 2 in the past, and then a 172 in the group too. It was actually the dad of one of our members here with that. Basically, if it's safe, we're welcome to consider it as part of our group. Like I say, we knew that the best video about Cherokees to Osh was going to be done by a Grumman guy, so it tells you something about our group here. Typically, we have about 40, 45 aircraft doing it now. We're actually one of the smaller groups. The Bonanzas have like 130 going in their group. Cessna's had up to 110 or something at one time, but anyway, we're a mix of the different models of all models on this. And what we find is the group's kind of 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. There's every year about 1/3 of the people are kind of bucket listers. They just plan to do this once. They just want to see what it's like and have no intention of continuing on. And then another 1/3 or so are guys like myself and Jan who come back every year as often as we can. And then another 1/3 are kind of somewhere in between, people who thought they were only going to do it once but have really enjoyed it and kind of come as their life schedules permit and all that stuff. We even did this in 2020. We had Oshkosh, had a group of us. We didn't do it formally there. We just flew over from Seaway to Osh. Just the regular Class D towers open, and we had lunch over there as a group. So we're definitely diehards on this stuff. One of the things we learned really early on is that we're going to need to do some formation flying to make this a safe experience to get that many airplanes out there. But we needed to do it in a safe way and in a basic way, because we wanted to strike the right balance between the need for doing the flying, doing it safely, recognizing that many people are just bucket listers, and that people have time constraints and can't go out and practice this every weekend. And we always remind ourselves that we're going to an air show, not putting one on. So it's about utility. It's about getting there safely rather than trying to look like the Thunderbirds or something when we go. It's our procedures for formation flying are rooted in very established formation flying training here. There's two groups that you may or may not be familiar with, one called FAST, which is kind of the warbird guys. They do the RPA, Red Star Pilots Association, and T6s and T28s and all those guys. They all use FAST procedures and books to train to. Another one very, very similar to it is FF5, which started by the RV community. Their procedures and the FAST procedures are almost identical, very, very minor differences. All of the stuff that we do is absolutely compatible and based on their stuff. We just have a couple of minor tweaks, such as we don't use hand signals, and then we also created something we call a side swap, which differs from their crossovers on that. And in fact, many of the core members, myself included, are FAST leads or wingmen. I've been a FAST lead through Red Star Pilots Association for about 8 years or so. A couple thoughts on formation flying. It's one of the very few team sports out there, and it absolutely requires team thinking all the time by everybody. And that's probably one of the biggest challenges for people, is to try to make sure that they're not just thinking about themselves in the airplane, but what is it that I'm doing that might affect the guy flying next to me or behind me and stuff like that. And just like anything else, it involves learning some new skills, and some of these skills are kind of breaking the rules, not FAA rules, but some of the basic flying rules, like having another airplane on the runway at the same time as you on purpose. Staying away from other airplanes is something we learned early on. And one of the big ones technique-wise is cross-controlling. We do a lot of cross-controlling to get in position and fix things. It's really hard for some people to break that in their brains as we go through it. And it's not for everybody, and that's okay. We understand that stuff here. So here's how we do our trips when we go on any kind of trip, whether it's a training trip or going to Osh. We'll have a briefing where we're going to cover what we're doing for the flight. We'll cover the lineup, who's going to go where, cover the route. We'll talk through the procedures that align with what we're trying to do for the objectives there, and then we'll set a check-in time. And then we'll go out and start up and taxi, and we check in at a brief time on that. We'll line up on the runway. This is our typical lineup here, where you see the leads are on the center line, and the wingmen are on opposite side. All of the number 2s are on this side, and the 3s are here. We intentionally put some holes. Sometimes the number of planes dictates this, but we intentionally try to put some holes every couple of elements here. You kind of heard on the check-in that there would have been a Charlie 3 and a Fox 3. We do that on purpose to kind of help with some spacing issues on there. But anyway, this is how we do it. We typically only operate on runways that are bare minimum 75 feet wide, and typically 100 feet is our preferred. So everybody has a clear lane ahead of them when they take off. We depart by elements there. Each element lead rolls first, and then the number 2s roll roughly about 5 seconds later, and 3 about 5 seconds after that. We have element lead to element lead spaced out 30 seconds apart, and they're flying at a fixed 90 knots, 300 foot per minute climb, so that helps establish 3/4 of a mile between the elements once they get up in the air. And then as they're climbing out, the wingmen go ahead and get on board as soon as they can. And for us, on board looks like this. It's a 3-ship, what we call a Vic formation, where basically lead is in the center, and 2 and 3 are lined up. They start off, 2 is on the left and 3 is on the right. And the wingmen basically adhere to what we call the ABCs. That is, their first priority is that they maintain a stacked down altitude. That gives us a margin of safety. If somebody got too close, you can cross under. They do a bearing. They stay on a bearing line, which is how far back, front back they are from lead, so that lead can see them all the time. And then closeness is the least important thing, but we work to keep them about 2 to 4 wingspans apart, and that helps simplify station keeping because it's easier to see the other plane moving and things like that, and it helps simplify turns and stuff like that. En route, we're typically flying our 95 knots and 1,000 feet above the ground. What we say is that the Cherokee lead is flying 95 knots. Everybody else is adjusting based on that. So even the element leads, 95 is a reference, but not a hard and fast. They're really trying to maintain spacing, so 95 is what we're looking for. But that gives you an idea of the kind of speeds that we fly on this stuff. Wingmen should always be looking at their lead, never looking down at checking their fuel or anything like that. And then again, like I said, the element leads maintain that 3/4 mile separation, and they do this usually with very minor power changes or some minor corrections on the routing on there. We do, in our turns, we do no more than a standard rate turn for what we're doing on things, and then we fly what's called welded wing rather than echelon turn. If you picture here, what we're actually doing is, so if on the outside, if the lead is turning this direction, you would see that the wingman goes up, but still maintains a stack down compared to the lead. And on the inside of the turn, they're going down, but still maintain just a little bit of stack down from leaving that as well. Versus what's called echelon, where everybody would be in the same line. You can imagine if there was somebody over here turned away, they'd be belly up and blind to their lead. So we don't do that kind of stuff for our turns. We have a thing called side swaps here. We do these for a couple of reasons. One is, it's just kind of comfort for the wingman. It gives you the chance to get the crick out of their neck from staring like this the whole time, so now they get a crick this way instead. Gets them out of the sun. It also, during that time, in that process, you're not quite so close to lead, and it allows minor housekeeping like switching radios or just double checking your fuel and things like that. We try to do these multiple times, especially on the 45-minute flight from Seaway to Osh. And we actually do it radio silent. We can go the whole time, 44 airplanes, and never hear anybody say anything about a side swap the whole way. It's pretty slow. Just a real quick to show you what we're doing. Everybody starts off in this kind of position here, and then the wingmen fade back and then just kind of rudder over, kind of a walking pace over, and then they go forward and rejoin on the lead. So that what you've got is this guy is number 2 is now on the right side, and number 3 is over here. So just a quick way of demonstrating that. For our arrivals, we go into trail. So everybody gets signaled to go into a straight line. So inside of about 5 miles of the field, all of our planes are ideally lined up in a nice long line coming in. This signal with porpoise, shaking stabilator for a lead, and then 2 drops back to 500, 3 drops back 500 behind them. The element leads are still trying to keep that 3/4 miles apart. We have 2 basic kinds of arrivals. We do what's called an extended final, just a long final. And then we also do a downwind turn to final in trail. Once we get put back in trail, our speeds are typically, it's supposed to be 95 knots. And then for any descent phase, we're looking at 85 knots on the way down. So just a real quick illustration here of what extended final looks like. Leads will signal about a mile. We tend to use the final approach fix for the GPS approach into there as a stable reference. And then they just porpoise the people back in trail, so they're transitioning from 95 knots to 90. And then at 4 miles, everybody looks at their GPS, and when they get to 4.0, they kind of get on the escalator going down. And we shoot to cross the runway threshold about 100 feet above the ground and doing 85 knots. And then you transition into your landing configuration after that. So this is kind of what it looks like from the air. Kind of messy for the whole bunch of planes there, but again, we're going to an air show, not putting one on. But anyway, that's how it looks on the extended finals. Downwind, we do a little bit different. At 4 miles GPS from the field, we will porpoise people into trail, and we try to maintain at least a 3/4 nautical mile wide downwind, so it's wider than usual. We're referencing the 1,000-foot markers and captain's bars here. Everybody, from this point forward, it's basically like any other landing from a downwind. So you start your descent when you're being here, and then when you get to 45 from the runway, you turn and come around, again trying to cross the threshold at 85 knots and 100 feet above. Touchdown and landing roll, all the same for our landings. We use a hot-cold strategy, so that means that we kind of imagine there's a wall down the center line of the runway, and the cold side is the side we're going to ultimately exit on. So the hot side is the other half, and it allows aircraft, anybody who's landing, coming in too hot, at least there's a place for them to escape going directly forward to get that before they pass. We move from the hot to the cold side kind of quickly, about 45 knots, 45 knots, and then kind of slow down based on the plane ahead of us on that. Then after every flight, we debrief. This is a safety improvement tool. Not a lot of finger poking. No finger poking is tolerated in there. We really focus on candid feedback and ownership of where things could have been improved so that we make it safer along the way. This has really helped us to identify potential areas and prevent problems in the future. When we do this, the lead will check in the flight, kind of goes over the objectives, talk about the flight from their perspective, and then every pilot has a chance to debrief on the things that they saw for the flight in there. I'm not going to go through them all here, but we cover in our training and in our talking a lot of contingencies, everything from aborts to how to deal with wake turbulence, go-arounds, what do we do if there's other traffic in the pattern, what do we do if there's a fouled runway. Again, that's covered in the training materials on that. So, if you're interested in this stuff or whatever, it all starts with training. If you go to our websites, Cherokees2, Osh.com, we have some materials online there. You can look on the home page. If you look under the documents, you'll see there's a link for the training videos and for the documents that are basically the PowerPoint slides for those videos. Anybody can go on and look at those anytime. It's open to the public there. You'll get a good feel for what resources we have, and you're welcome to go through those. We do our training in the spring and in the summer at various mini clinics held all over the country. This is the initial training for new pilots, and then all of our pilots, the refresher training for everybody who's coming back. We were all expected to do at least one mini clinic, even if we've done these for the last 14 years. Typical schedule is we get in Friday, try to get in by 5 o'clock because we'll do a briefing on the stuff that afternoon. Resources permitting, we'll do some demo flights, let people knock the rust off if they've been flying in prior arrivals with us, and people can write seat with that to see what they're going to be doing the next day. And then we have dinner as a group. Saturdays we start with an 8 o'clock briefing, and we try to get in 3 flights before lunchtime. Every newcomer is going to have a safety pilot in the right seat for at least 3 flights. Okay, and then we typically do lunch on site. And then after lunch, we do some flights kind of as weather permits. It usually starts getting really too bumpy in most times in this time of year by about 2 o'clock. So we typically knock off about 2 or so in the afternoons there. If people need to, they could depart after that training on Saturday afternoon. And then we typically gather as a group for dinner when we're doing this. Sunday's a very flexible day. We don't do a lot of stuff then. If people want to do some flying in the morning, we try to knock out 1 or 2 flights for that. If people want to depart first thing, that's fine too. We're usually wrapped up by noon with all of the flying, even for people who want to get in extra stuff. Bottom line, these are fun events with lots of learning. Definitely come prepared to it and just plan to work hard, especially that Saturday morning, and enjoy meeting the family there. A lot of spouses come to these, especially certain ones. There's one in North Carolina. The guy who runs that one, it's in Ocean Isle Beach. It's right on the water. He has 3, he's got a duplex. Each side has 10 bedrooms en suite, and another house that's got 8 bedrooms en suite, right on the water. And so that one tends to draw more spouses than other ones do. So it's a lot of fun. So who qualifies to train? Bottom line is, I just want to have safe pilots who can be comfortable with their aircraft and can learn to be a team player. We used to have hard and fast rules, and really, these are more guidelines now than rules. Typically, if you've got about 200 hours total time, 50 hours in your aircraft, and 50 hours in the past 12 months, you're likely to be more successful than if you had less than that. We found IFR and commercial and all that stuff helps, but it's very different flying from that. But the idea that you're getting more advanced training and familiarity with your plane is definitely a positive. I gotta tell you, I've seen low-time pilots who have done well, and CFIs who actually have struggled with this stuff, believe it or not. So it's just a different kind of flying than what you're used to in a lot of other cases. Then we also require the usual current medical insurance and current flight review and things like that. As far as what do you need to do to go with us on the arrival, you need to do the training, and I can tell you when people have not done the online training before they show up at a mini clinic, and it actually drags everybody down. And I'm trying to be diplomatic about things, but to be honest, that adds some level of safety risk when people have not done their homework literally and gotten ready. So that's really, really important. We now require mini clinics. Newcomers need to do 2 mini clinics. So one in the spring someplace, and then either a second one in the spring, or you'll see on our schedule we have like a last ditch mini clinic like a day or 2 before the arrival in Seaway. Really encourage you to do as many of them as you can. But bottom line is, there is no way to qualify for the arrival by just showing up at Seaway a couple of days before the trip. We just don't consider that safe, so we don't do it that way. So who qualifies after you've done the training? Basically, anybody who's completed the successful training. Like I say, my goal is to get everybody safe and comfortable doing this stuff and be part of the group and safe in that regard. Again, we're going to an air show, not putting one on, so I don't care how pretty stuff is, as long as collectively, we, the team and the individual pilot, feel comfortable and safe with what's going on here. Typically, pilots are qualified by the third flight on Saturdays. That's not a requirement, it's strictly an observation. There's no small number of people who have needed 1, 2, 3, 4 extra flights before they felt comfortable even going on their own. That is fine. That's what we're here for, is to get people comfortable with that. We just work with them in their individual situations, because let's be honest, this group actually looks younger than many of the PA-28 group here. So I've got a lot of pilots that are not young anymore, and so we've got to kind of make sure that they're comfortable with this stuff too. And that's kind of how we're oriented around this stuff too. So, and some pilots decide, even though they're doing well, that this isn't for them, which is totally fine. And I got to say that although several pilots have decided it's not for them and they've kind of self-selected out, I can't think of a single person that I've said, no, I know you think you're ready, but you can't go. We keep working with people until they either feel comfortable, we feel comfortable with them, or they decide to go out. But if I need to do it, believe me, we're safety oriented. We're not going to stop that. So at Seaway, it's basically a big family reunion. And quite honestly, to me, the Seaway part of the Oshkosh adventure has become at least as much fun as actually going to Osh, because it's just a big family reunion. We're doing a lot of fun flying, and it's a little bit slower paced than, in a lot of ways, than actually once you get to Osh there. Typically, if we're doing a Friday arrival, people are coming in Monday through Wednesday. It kind of progressively picks up during that time. And lately, we've been staying at a place called the Grand Lodge. It has an indoor pool and a hot tub. Got the breakfast there and stuff. To be honest, it was great the first year. It had a water park inside. It was amazing when we first did that, but they've kind of struggled with stuff, and they're kind of transitioning to a kind of a extended stay place for people who are there for a couple months for business or something like that. So but if you don't like this as a hotel, there are other hotel options that are nearby there. Assuming that we have a Friday arrival, and again, if we did Saturday or Sunday, all these dates would be slipped. Monday or Tuesday, if people got in, this would kind of be playtime. We would do a lot of practice flights based on who's there. Wednesday would be the last chance mini clinic, and it can count again as the second clinic for newcomers. And by exception, I'll allow this for experienced people, because I really, really want people to go in the spring when they don't feel quite so rushed on this stuff. These days are voluntary if your mini clinic needs have already been met, so you can opt out of later flights in the day. I don't have a problem with that stuff. And we're typically done with flying by about 2 o'clock or so. We have good ground transportation, so we've got ability to move people around, including spouses and kids and stuff like that during the day. So it's pretty well organized. The dinners in the evening on those first days, we tend to just go to local places there. We've got transportation for it. There's a couple of places that are walking distance from the hotels, and they got some actually very nice restaurants in town that we arrange transportation for there too. So it's a really good experience. On Thursday, we do a review of procedures briefing. You saw in the slide there, that was the one where I tried to be Eddie Trebek, Alex Trebek's younger, better-looking brother, and did a Jeopardy kind of version there. But we try to do a review of the procedures, and then we go do a dress rehearsal flight where we get the whole group up and do that. And then we have a big briefing of the trip to Osh, where we'll cover contingencies, the routing, and things like that on the stuff. That night, we have an awards banquet and fundraiser. It's kind of pizza and chicken wings at a pub across the way there. And then we have some nice prizes and stuff there. Shout out to the people who've been here. Laminar Flow has been great. Electra Air has been one of our stronger supporters and stuff too. They have a lot of good stuff in this here. On the arrival day, we just check out and get the planes pre-flighted. We'll do a preliminary flight brief. And then we'll talk to the tower to see what they want us to do for arrivals, let them know how many planes we got coming, and then we go ahead and get airborne. Once we get in, we have after arrival, we have a post-arrival debrief, as you saw there. We kind of want to make sure we capture all the lessons learned, and then everybody breaks up from there. After that, those who are camping, go ahead and set up their tents there. I'd say roughly 3/4 of the group chooses to camp in the North 40. Absolutely not required. We've been doing it this was the first year that we didn't do it for my wife and I. We've got an Airbnb kind of thing. The other people will, after the debrief, will peel out, go VFR back to wherever they want to go, either back to Seaway, up to Appleton. Some people go to Wapaka, which isn't too far away, where we used to have the prep flight. So that's how people go there. In the North 40, whether you're staying there camping or moving on and coming back in the evenings, we have a big fest tent that we set up. We provide some camp chairs there and tables and coffee maker and all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of a fun time. Definitely the events have not ended by the time we do that. We even have a barbecue dinner on one of the nights there, and then a meet the sponsor kind of time. We have the coffee urn and toaster oven and all that made there. And then we typically have a keg of Spotted Cow, which is a local brew that's very popular there. And the keg usually lasts for a few days, kept it on ice the whole time. So we break things down on the stuff inside the tent by Wednesday, but the tent stays up through the weekend there. So you might be wondering, is this a fit for 32s? Absolutely. Like I say, we've been having them since the beginning. The speeds that we have been a compromise. Used to do 90 knots, we bumped it up to 95 just for the 32s, quite honestly, and our arrows too, to have a little bit more margin, a little more comfort with that for the cruise. We do find that, we do some other things to make sure that it's safer too. We try to keep everybody in elements that are kind of like performance, so I don't have a problem mixing 32s with arrows and Dakotas and even the Grummins. And frankly, it's not unsafe for us to have a 32 with a PA 140 in there as well. We've got that nailed down. One thing I will note is that with the 32s find that they fly a little better with a notch of flaps for most of the way around on this, but that's an individual choice, and you'll see that stuff in the training materials there. So if you're interested in this, check out our website. You can take a look at our training materials, see our mini clinic schedule. There's some FAQs on there. If you think you're interested still, consider coming to a mini clinic. Even if you're not planning to do the arrival, that's perfectly fine. Also, if it's easier for you, you may consider going with some of the other groups. The Mooney guys and the Bonanzas are particularly good fits for the 32s, especially the retracts. And look at their clinics. They do things a little different than we do. They are much, much more oriented around the fast FFI kind of stuff. So they train a lot of 2, 3, 4 ship size things and do not actually train the big package stuff. My emphasis is on the big package stuff and get everybody comfortable in there. But if you want to go just to learn to formation fly and see if it's for you, those are some groups to look into. If you do that, you still need to go to a Cherokees to Osh mini clinic at least the first year. We do have reciprocity with the other groups, including the Cessnas, but we all agree that the first year for our people needs to be with our home group on that, but that's an option for you. But please, please be very careful not trying to do formation flying on your own without some kind of training on this. I mean, who would want to shoot an instrument approach to the MINS just after reading a book and seeing YouTube videos? Not a good idea. It looks easy when it's done right, and as with many things, the big kicker is when things don't go right and knowing the procedures to do when things go sour. So please keep that in mind. And actually, lead is harder than it looks. I've heard too many times of somebody saying that, oh, I know how to fly formation, and Joe, you haven't done this before, so you be lead and I'll just fly off of you. That makes me really nervous when I hear that, because it's a lot. Lead is a much more complicated job of thinking not just your airplane, but what you're doing that will affect the other guys. So the bottom line is just to get excited about it, but please get the proper training. So we'd love to have you join our family and take a look into this. This is, as you can tell, a 6. Dan's carded wing and fast, and then this is Dwayne Ferguson. He's got a Cherokee 6 as well. And this is his Tiger, and he was leading this, and we're just doing breaks while we're doing some playtime stuff. So anyway, so here's some links to the website resources if you like, and happy to answer any questions if anybody's got them. Yes, sir?
When you guys are in formation, how do you deal with like engine failure or something?
So we talk about that. We have especially in our contingency stuff, what we talk if it's a wingman We call it 15 for 15. You break out, you go 15 degrees at bank for 15 seconds. That's going to, at standard rate, it's going to put you 45 away from the group. Then they go autonomous. They are away from the group now. They basically aviate, navigate, communicate from that point on. If it's lead, an element lead that has to do it, they kind of do the same thing. They make a call and then they start braking, and the wingmen are supposed to follow them until they're away from the group, and then they get away from the wingmen, so that the wingmen get away from the lead after they've broken out from the group.
You do mass departures also after?
Mass, when we take
From Oshkosh?
No, we do. So we don't do mass departures per se, but there are definitely people who, when, if 2 or 3 of us are going to go leave, hey, you want to do it as an element takeoff or whatever, depending on their proficiency level. And so, yeah, ATC or controllers are very friendly with that stuff for everybody. So they'll let us line. I think they'll let 3 of us or 4 of us get on there if we want to, and then you can take it off. But we don't. That debrief there at the end, Ed's job's done after that. So in our group, people do that, but it's kind of on their own stuff and as they feel comfortable doing that.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
You say that you have to do 2 mini clinics in the first year.
Yeah.
That can be at different locations, or they can both be in Jeff City, for example.
Well, we're not going to hold 2 in Jeff City. We're only going to hold 1 at any given town. Okay. Where are you at?
St. Louis.
You're in St. Louis. Okay, so Jeff City and Nashville is probably a reasonable one for you. And then even
Or do it. Go early to CWA and do it.
for the second one, yeah, that would be another option too. Yeah. Some of these mini clinics are a lot of fun. Kent Dornick is a farmer up in southeastern Minnesota, and he hosts a mini clinic there. And getting to go out, and I'm a city boy, man. Just going out and watching him with his farm toys and stuff has been great. It's really kind of cool. So where the places are a lot of fun, and a lot of this stuff too. So. Any other questions? Well, good. Well, thank you all for your attention. Appreciate it.